So, hi everybody, welcome to my podcast, The Secret Diary of Marie Jenkins 47 Plus. And today we've got the wonderful Chris Lunt with us. Hiya, Chris.
Hello, Marie, how you doing?
I'm really great. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on today. I think we first connected over Twitter.
I think it was Twitter, yeah. I think I'd actually seen one of your podcasts and just thought it was great, really enjoyed listening to it, and we took it from there.
Absolutely, and here we are, and I've learned a lot about your company. I just thought it'd be really valuable to our housing listeners. So let's just launch into the interview and tell me a bit more about who you are, what you do, where do you work?
Yeah, so Christopher Lunt, I'm part of the commercial team at a company called VoiceScape. For a SaaS tech company who operate in the social housing space. Everyone calls me Chris, so that works for everyone.
Okay, so to get to know you a bit better, what actually gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, I guess in the commercial sense, I've always been a keen problem solver. So I think I've always worked with tech, which has been about fundamentally solving problems for people or for companies. And I love the buzz of seeing a system or a project come to fruition and being able to delight the client with the outcomes and essentially achieving the results that we promised. I guess beyond that, I like to stay fit and healthy, spend quality time with friends and family, which of course has been a bit tricky of late. Go on the occasional adventure, expand my horizons, nothing terribly exciting.
I think it's really important that you enjoy what you do, and clearly tech's your thing. How long have you been at VoiceScape?
Actually, I started with VoiceScape right at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was around June time that I formally started with the organization, but I've been in with dialogue with them for quite a while. Right. And in fact, the interview process itself was really interesting, I thought, anyway. And it really gave me a sort of some fresh perspective. If I was a hiring manager at some point, I would probably want to do something similar, in that we had a lot of, Zoom style conversations ahead of us both agreeing to the employment, and it felt very collaborative. I spoke with John Doyle, our CEO, a number of times, but he also introduced me to some of his key players in the team. So I met with a handful of other colleagues at the time, or would have been future colleagues. And I think from the company's point of view and from my point of view, it really de-risked the hire. So they got to know me, I got to know them. We all kind of came to this consensus that it was the right move. And it didn't happen overnight, and that was quite a long-winded process. But what it meant was, when I joined the organization, I already felt part of the family. So
double bonus.
Definitely that would never have happened if not for being on lockdown. So you got to find the positives in that, haven't you?
Absolutely. Have you always worked in tech then?
Mostly always, yeah. I mean, I've prior to sort of moving into the housing market, it was education technology for many years. Going way back when I was involved in the leisure sector, but yeah, mostly always technology in some way, shape or form.
It seems that tech is having a massive impact on so many people's lives, and it's fantastic, really, because everybody's upskilling. But there's a balance to be had there, isn't there? And do you think technology is going to replace us all?
I don't think it will. I think in terms of what we do as a company, and when I think about other sort of initiatives I've been involved with as well in the past, great technology augments human activity. So a good story, when I was a kid, we used to live near a busy main road. There was a pelican crossing on the main road, the kind of press the button kind, where you have to wait for the green man to cross. So when you think about it, that type of controlled crossing is controlled by computers.
Yeah.
It's kind of semi-automated. You just need a human to press the button. However, during the school run hours, the button was pressed by a lollipop lady who helped everybody across the road. Why? We had automation to take care of this. The computers rarely, if ever, failed. And well, I guess the answer in there is that there's a lot of tasks that are best left to machines.
Yeah.
A lot of tasks that humans can take better care of. So in this analogy, if a human had to manually switch the red, amber and green lights themselves every time somebody wanted to cross the road, can you imagine how much work would be involved in that? It'd be exceptionally inefficient. It'd probably be quite a depressing job as well, because it'd just be prone to error from all this kind of repetition, and it just wouldn't be the way you do it. So in that sense, the actual changing of the lights is best left to computers. But when we go back to the lollipop lady, the value that she added was kind of immeasurable. As kids, we looked forward to seeing her. We knew her by name, and she kind of brightened up our day a little bit. It felt like she had our backs. So she became a person that we could trust. She had a role to play in our personal development. And anybody who argued, well, all that she did was press the button for us, they kind of entirely missed the point. So applying that thought process to what we do at VoiceScape, what we do for social landlords, it's the kind of donkey work of changing the lights, and all that kind of automation that goes in behind the process, making sure the system runs efficiently. So, we don't replace humans, but we augment, our technology augments their processes. And in our capacity, our clients, social landlords, we're taking care of things like dialing numbers, sending text messages, updating systems, leaving voice messages, that sort of thing, freeing up time for the staff members to actually speak with their customers, their tenants, and just kind of adding efficiency into the system, really. So our technology is just designed to strip away all of the kind of inefficiency that's in a particular operation, and serve landlords with connected calls with customers and tenants they want to speak to and they need to speak to.
And it sounds to me like it helps organisations prioritise their resources, because when I was a head of service, I was responsible for the support team, and I'd have sort of 20 members of staff doing those phone calls with their tenants every morning. And 75% of them were fine. They were happy, everything was okay in relation to their support needs. But then, it could be that the one that you needed to get to is at the less of a long group of customers that you're supporting. So actually, the way your technology can help could actually save lives. And it really, really could.
Well, I think you've really hit the nail on the head there with, and it's a common story that, I hear from people that we engage with. The optimal strategy, as we see it for an organization, is that right person, right time, right medium, right message, as opposed to that typical scenario that you've just described, where you're getting too much contact with people who might not necessarily need it, and not enough with those who do. And yeah, it's such a common story. And it's funny, I don't think we'd ever put out a sort of piece of collateral or marketing that sort of says we'll help people save lives, so to say. However, we've got anecdotal evidence of situations where, for example, we made a kind of assisted living call to somebody who's in a sheltered housing, and because we could call them on their mobile, which a lot of systems were capable of doing, we actually caught them whilst they're out on the walk, and I think they'd had a fall. So that call helps them get some help and support. Fantastic. So there are anecdotes out there that sort of support.
Yeah, I can imagine. And so can you tell me a bit more about what you believe is the right approach for tenant engagement? Because I think those calls are just one example of many fantastic things that you guys at VoiceScape can do.
Yeah, well, I guess if I give an overall summary of VoiceScape, as a proposition, I'll lay that out and just kind of say where I think the wins are for us in that. So, I mean, I guess to understand, a lot of people kind of say to me, well, what's VoiceScape actually do for us? You've got to kind of consider the context of the primary market they're operated in, which essentially is serving social landlords in the UK. And then all the factors and all the sort of pressures that social landlords are under. So think about the ongoing welfare reform programme. You think back to June 2017 and the Grenfell Tower disaster.
Absolutely.
You think about the COVID pandemic. All of these pressures, all of these in many cases sort of tragic incidents, or in some cases political change, confirm that effective tenant engagement is a massive priority for social landlords. Those who get it right, they tend to enjoy stronger, more sustainable tenancies. They tend to have better building safety compliance. They tend to have higher customer satisfaction. Those who haven't found the right path yet, they may have higher operational costs. They may see increased rent arrears. They may find themselves in hot water with regulators. So what we do is we provide a managed service which is underpinned by data science and an understanding of customer behaviour. And this service is really about helping landlords cultivate a better relationship with their customers, with their tenants. And some of the operational challenges that we address involve mitigating income arrears, collecting rent, gathering feedback to measure customer satisfaction, booking in essential electrical testing and gas compliance visits, and with the example I alluded to before, just consistently monitoring resident well-being. So our services are all tailored to the organisation. It's a very kind of hands-on, managed service that we provide. In all cases, we have a proven track record of success. And I guess, the unique thing I would say about us as a tech business, not just in housing, but as a tech business in general, is that it is a bit more than tech. I mentioned the customer behaviour. Our success team, our whole kind of client success team, is comprised of data scientists and people who've got a pedigree in understanding that sort of process. So our aim ultimately is to help landlords achieve a balance, I guess, between their commercial ambitions and their social purpose.
Yeah, and that's always been something that's been discussed in social housing, the balance between the social responsibilities, if you like, and being commercial as well. And that's just has always and will continue to be a topic of discussion. And in relation to tenant engagement as well, I mean, I would see that for any organisation, when they're looking to sort of improve their services, it's a good idea to do the research first, I'd say. And there's a company called TLF Research, and they do sort of customer experience research for housing organisations. And I think doing that piece of work first could then help when it sort of comes to sort of using the more tech in which you guys provide.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I was watching a presentation recently with Jenny Osborne from TPAS, and she, sometimes you can overcomplicate things. Residents will often say, I think themselves, look, just find a way to talk to us and have a conversation with us. It's not that complicated, really. It's just, we'll give you the feedback that you need. I remember with our resident wellbeing services, we kind of did some focus groups around that, because the way that particular service works is, you think about those morning check-in calls that will get put through to certain people in sheltered accommodation. We seek to automate some of that process. So what we wanted to do is get a sense that, is this going to scare people off? Are they ready for this tech? Are they comfortable with the tech? And essentially, we're just popping a call through to their phone, mobile, landline, whatever it may be. But we did a lot of work with them with people actually in that situation, in kind of focus groups, just to understand, were they going to respond to that service? And I know from speaking with our team just a couple of days ago, in fact, they were sort of saying that we've had some really good success. I think it was in South Tyneside, where there were some residents who didn't have those calls. They'd opted out of them, but when they kind of got to grips with how VoiceScape delivered them, they actually opted in, because they they saw
Brilliant.
the value in the service. And I think sometimes they can be a little bit restrictive because you're kind of tied to waiting for the phone to ring, and you got to stay home and wait by it, or sometimes press a button to confirm that you're okay. But you can't get out and get on with your day. Whereas if you've got a call coming through to your mobile, then it's a bit more flexible.
Yeah. And I think from what you're saying as well, actually more customers or more tenants could benefit really, because it can massively help to, we're in this global pandemic at the moment, and there's lots of concern around people feeling isolated and mental health issues and things. And I think support services in housing will particularly have to sort of look at the vulnerability of their customers. Vital services like what you guys deliver it's a brilliant opportunity, I think, for organisations to make sure that they're still reaching out.
Yeah, I mean, certainly during the early stages of the pandemic as well, many of our clients, I remember Onward putting a big campaign in to just reach out to their customers and say, hey guys, are you okay? Do you need anything from us? And some of the conversations that kind of came out of that, with some of them were really important. Some of them were kind of funny. It's just like, well, my shop's shut, I can't get my favorite ice cream or whatever it may be. But others were like, no, I really need a hand. But with that particular one, I think it was Onward, we contacted around 20,000 residents, if I have this right, but only about 500 of them said they actually required assistance from the landlord.
Wow, okay.
Now, when you think about the human effort that would go through to getting hold of finding that needle in the haystack, finding those 500 people, and we did that in a month, then it's quite incredible. So that's the kind of value of automation, really. That's what it brings to you. When you've got a lot of people that you need to contact with a message. In this case, it was a kind of well-being or welfare message. Are you okay? Do you need anything from us? It's a really great way to go about it. I mean, even going forward, there was a chap I was in some dialogue with on LinkedIn the other day who's sort of saying, based upon some of the risk factors facing the BAME community around COVID, maybe not. I think there's some evidence to sort of point towards socioeconomic factors that perhaps will put people in certain categories at higher risk of maybe not seeing the messaging around COVID. So, this particular consultancy was talking about finding a way to get that message to these people. Well, if you've got to reach a lot of people, automation's a good way to go about it. So yeah, the use cases develop as things unfold. One thing I've noticed a lot, in fact, I can't think of a single social landlord that hasn't said this actually, but hearing a lot of people kind of saying our whole approach has just changed to being one where we're building up this kind of trusted partnership, this relationship. We're connecting not as somebody who maybe is chasing a rent, a renter is, but is actually we just want to check that they've got all the help they need from us, and we're really forging strong relationships. And it's something that perhaps has always been there, but the focus on it now is really sharp.
Yeah, definitely. And with the whole Black Lives Matter sort of conversations that's been had when you're talking about the BAME communities, I'm interested actually. How can VoiceScape do translation? Can you sort of add that within?
Yeah, we do. I can't think who off the top of my head, but or whether it's something that we just scoped out as a possibility. But I know that we had some requests as when we pop calls through to different people, could we maybe put a recording in a different language? So if we think about maybe recording a message that goes out to a client base that says something as basic as, hey, are you okay today? If we know that the first language of a particular cohort of residents isn't English, and we know what that language is, we could happily record that message in another language, get that out to the right people. It's that right message thing, right person, right message. And what we typically do with those calls is it'll be an automated voice recording of a real human, sometimes housing officers, sometimes welfare officers, sort of saying we just want to check you're all right today, and then we'll if you want to press the button to go through to our team to talk to them now, like right this minute, go for it. If not, here's a number if you need to give us a call back, kind of thing.
Mm.
So yeah, to do that in another language is fine.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's really, really innovative. So what sort of other organisations do you get involved with?
We don't have any kind of formal arrangements with other tech companies in the housing space, but of course we try and remain on good terms with companies who, say, for example, provide housing management systems, data analytics platforms, as we all address different parts of the ecosystem when it comes to customer contact. So, you know, I think we've got some healthy relationships there, nothing kind of formal or commercial, but we're all speaking to the same people. And what we have done recently is become involved in an initiative called More Than Homes, which is something Accent Housing invited us to play a part in. And this engagement has led us to support the Trussell Trust as a commercial sponsorship arrangement. So that's there, but then in the background, our staff have been able to take part in fundraising activities or even voluntary work on behalf of their affiliated food banks. So I think that's something everybody's really proud to play a part in.
Absolutely. I mean, it's been on the news only just this morning, you know, about concerns about children and during school holidays and their meals and things. Yeah. And is it Rashford, the footballer? It's massive on the news, isn't it? And food banks are unfortunately coming a part of life, but they're so valuable. So yeah. Oh well, that's really great that you're given that opportunity to sort of give back as well in like a corporate social responsibility element of VoiceScape.
Well, you know, just as social landlords themselves have that at the heart of their organizations, I think it's right that as a company that works in that space that we share that same kind of social purpose as well as our own commercial ambitions. And you know, I think I'll probably speak for the whole team when we say we're kind of proud to be a part of it, albeit in quite a small way.
Yeah. Well, it all helps, and it's very commendable. So let's project ourselves into the future now, and let's think positively of like post-COVID, once we're out of this whole pandemic. What are you looking forward to most? Because I know I can see there that you're working from home.
Yeah. I mean, we've done a bit of work from the office, done a bit of work from home. We've just tried to get the right fits for different members of the team, and of course we recognize even for social landlords themselves, for a lot of people actually working from home is a tough ask because of their circumstances. If they haven't got the space, they can't get the right setup. So that in itself has been challenging for some people, and for others it's worked amazingly well. I've spoken to people who've no longer got 3-hour commutes of their day, so
Absolutely.
love it. So that in itself is there's kind of ups and downs, and I think one of the interesting it'll be interesting to sort of see, like, I'm an advocate of it. I've worked from home for years. Prior to working for VoiceScape, I did a lot of work out in Saudi Arabia, so I was flying out there a lot, and when I wasn't there, I was working from home in the UK. So it's something that I'm fairly used to, but I can extol the benefits of it and go out there and say, hey, everybody should do this, but I know that it just doesn't work for everybody. So I think that's a challenge that almost as a country we'll need to work out. How do we make it work for everybody? Because this probably, we probably won't go back to what we knew. I think there's a lot of people that have looked at this situation and thought, well, why do we spend that long, polluting the environment in cars or just wasting hours of our day commuting? So it'd be interesting to actually see how we address that problem as a nation. In terms of what I'm looking forward to come back to your question, so many things, right? I mean, on a really kind of base level, I suppose, I miss my coffee shops. I just love the kind of ambience and the sort of buzz of being in a coffee shop with like friends, or even sometimes on my own with a book. And I kind of miss that, but it's a double-edged sword because I have saved an absolute fortune by not going to them. So I don't know about that one. I'm kind of, on the one hand, I crave it, and then on the other hand, I'm kind of like, yeah, but clearly I spend a lot of money in these places. I think obviously, spending more time with friends and family with whom I've maybe become a little bit less well connected. We try to do the old, done a few of the old pub quizzes on Zoom.
Have you?
You can only get so much out of it. So yeah, I think just seeing people, and in a commercial sense, meeting, again, I think client meetings over Zoom is great, and generally I'd advocate as a kind of first introduction to a potential client. It's good to kind of sound each other out, see if you speak in the same language, if you share the same sort of objectives. But meeting somebody face to face, having a brew with them, that kind of thing, miss that.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting, actually, from a housing perspective, that they're having to be more creative so that they're compliant to the government guidelines around social distancing, but also getting people in the office, as well as supporting those that need it, that are working from home. Can people still access all of your services if they was to work from home then?
Yeah. It's not really presented a big challenge for us at all, not really. I mean, ultimately we're kind of telephony experts, so
yeah, that's really good. So they can be in the office or they can work from home and they can still use your services. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Hopefully cloud hosted, so
yeah, brilliant. So I want to know, now we've had a bit of an insight into your life in coffee shops, I'd like to know what inspires you. Who is it that you've either worked with previously that you thought, they've really inspired you, or who is it that inspires you when you look forward in your career?
Oh gosh, crikey. Well, we could talk all day, I suppose. I mean, when I think about specifically within the housing sector, so I'm not really great on the old socials. I think I've mentioned before. I'm trying to get my head around it. Recently anyway, started on Twitter, having kind of resisted it for many years. And I remember one of the first chaps on Twitter I followed. He's a chap called Tony Smith, and I think his Twitter handle is something like Housing IT Guy.
Yeah.
He, amongst many other things, pops a lot of blog posts out there, and they really resonate with me. I kind of feel like quite aligned with a lot of his thoughts on things, and really enjoy consuming his content. Whether we'd have a cause to ever work together, I'm not too sure. But as I understand, we operate in the same space, obviously. So he was probably one of the first few people that kind of started to follow on Twitter, and I really am still getting my head around Twitter. So other than that, I guess
I think you do very well there, Chris. I think you do very.
I give it a go. There's a chap who many people perhaps watching this will be familiar with called Alistair McIntosh, who from the Housing Quality Network, and again I consume a lot of his content. He posts a lot on LinkedIn, and I think he reads every newspaper under the sun on a daily basis. I kind of find, again, a lot of the stories he shares on there I really engage with. I often comment on his posts. I'm not sure if he appreciates it or not. But we'll do some work, I think, with the Housing Quality Network. I'm sure we have done, and we'll do more. As there is sort of an agency that's very much embedded in social housing. So yeah, there's a couple of people there. I could name CEOs that I follow, and there's a number of them that I'd love to work with, or in many cases just have a brew with, and just kind of understand that world. I find a lot of them quite visionary, but I think if I named one, I'd be doing a disservice to many others, because there's a lot of people I follow out there that I just think, they've really got their head wrapped around this particular problem, or the direction, the vision that they kind of share really resonates. So there's a few in the commercial sense. I mean, the team at VoiceScape, I've got to say, I've not had this before, but to work in a company where, first of all, everybody's like a really high performer, but really gets their role, the sector, the challenges, and how to solve those challenges. They're a great team to work with. and just sometimes internally you can kind of get lost in just like, oh, what they said there just is so good, it makes so much sense. So it's a really great team to work with, and I think we've got a few thought leaders in the business that definitely kind of, I think people should be following, like Stephen Johnson, and Chris Walker, who have put out a lot of stuff around behavioural science there. So
I think it's an excellent company. It sounds so innovative, and I think it's a question of watch this space to see how you grow and develop. And I think especially now as more tech is becoming integrated into our lives, and especially in the housing sector, how well you'll continue to grow. So I wish you all the best with that, Chris.
Oh, thank you very much. We'll no doubt stay in touch.
Absolutely.
And,
so can you tell me,
maybe when the
how
coffee
can
shops are
people
open?
get in touch with you? Well, yeah, social media. How can people get in touch with you? You mentioned you're on Twitter.
Yeah, I think Twitter, LinkedIn, if you just Google my name, it's Christopher Lunt. That's Lunt. I'm easily found, I think, especially if you couple it with VoiceScape. So yeah, Twitter or LinkedIn is fine. Don't mind either or both.
Okay, lovely. Well, thank you very much for giving us just an insight into the fantastic, exciting future of VoiceScape today. And it's been a real pleasure. Thanks very much, Chris.
No, the pleasure is mine. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate. I think, the podcast is great. Really, I've loved consuming the content. So yeah, well done.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Chris. Nice to speak to you today. All the best.
Thanks, Marie.
Bye then.